Namo Jong De 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 Shi Mo Zhao Jing Bo Yang Do Ba Su Pe Sa Wo Dong Jiu Su Den Bo De Wo Shi Bo Jiu Den Jian Bo Zhu Bo De Bo Lu Jiu Wo Lo No Ne Bo Lo Dong Ne No Ji Den Bo Song Ji Jiu De Wo Jiu Jiu Du Bo Lo Jiu Se Jiu Du Jiu Su Ji Wu 孔子高年所我者当学，所见的那广博的博，年就点的那就接送的这个我就那相似，那多个嘛就多做什么，也是叫做这个那我。大我就点送那给我，广播就你就那相似。在这电波正面的一下，先多着我家那相子，这见着是我送两面前见就了相子路，广播杜绝这电波，当前前辈电波。有的绕左街，的人是那相子路。大别的唱着我就月个送的着，觉得的当就我现就那相思，这天这月那样的那光的那绕子，先月当把也点跟着那样相思。留我这样的小心，给我的送走吧。不让给三年要做的，这年上的天吧。阿妈让人忙没当，就忙死我去不。没了落到真大不，都是就能得到。自当的人当觉子我也。我帮他们解决这点，那当解决那主，随便做点着。
Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Ultra Piedmont, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasaya, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Venerable Shari said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasaya, how should a son of the lineage train wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasaya answered the Venerable Shariputra with his words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should see purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are born and not ceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on the mind by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since the minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity and in their mind. All the Buddhas who dwell on the three times and rely upon the perfection of wisdom, and then become true and complete Buddhas, unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the following perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, who is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisattva. Shariputra. This is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the bodhisattva mahasattva, Avalokiteshvara, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you were taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, rejoice and praise the words of the Blessed One.
Anda sebe sara mare meso donge jeze lozo gela buji danse yana zhuji yangde so loda che ro nye mo nye mo de che ja ro zhe shi Mare mese donge nyungu Chunye chunze chaduna Dene doje saje dosa Luzo jase toye Jodo judan junye jenje Dale mese jabe yana Gadon tenjo joro doba do bobe no zodo yo 담비 추는 지세라고 된 개체와 인사는 다 주변 담아서 손진 쇼지어와 인자네 좋아 단된 거는 추는 요구 백개 처벌된 거
So we should not think of ourselves being here, or we should not take it very lightly. In other words, being oneself in the presence of one's guru and receiving the teachings of Dharma. And it is said that one should not take very lightly, or one should not take it as unimportant, but rather one should think it is extremely important. So I'm doing something that is very important and meaningful and purposeful at this time. So one should have, by having this idea or the sense of urgency and importance, one then participate in receiving the teachings delightfully, enthusiastically and delightfully. Just as that the great beings of the past have stated that one should participate in receive the teachings of the Dharma, even more precious, more beneficial than finding piles of jewels or diamonds and so on. So therefore, this is the sense of urgency and sense of importance of receiving the teachings of Dharma should be present at this point.
당가서 단다 이찬의 미세 총학스게요 말이다. 대리 최친의 제시에 되게 투비 바차선에 등재질라 지금 저도 마음반에 전절라 응원의 소속에 있는 대마어 뒤송무스 시비가라 대령 가서 추세니라 아니 다 대바친 거지 좀다 싫어지 바로 대신에 체내제에게 아니 뒤서 등재지기 바차된 내리지 정신 세야지 뭐네 제나 그 다의 여행에 통해 여행에 지기 바차 전부 진조 투여다
So, although at this point, one may not be able to measure, or one may not be able to see the merits that we are accumulating by receiving the teachings for just 2 hours, it is to say that once you are able to reach at a certain point where you are equipped with this clairvoyance of seeing past and future, and you will be able to see that at some point at that time, I have spent the 2 hours of time receiving the such and such teachings, and I have accumulated such amount of merits and virtue. So you will be able to see that, once you have reached to the level where you are able to utilize your clairvoyance.
같은 교회직이 전환도 되면 내가 한게 되지 않을까. 좀 투명 뭐. 당 가속이 야만 제르마도 마지미지 텐서메로. 당 가서 제가 가속이 주지 강가를 이제 넘버 10번 생각된 가서 강가를 단다 요래다. 지질은 엄보게 내가 제바지마도 이제 넘버 10번 제게 뭐 나온 펜슬을 전하면도 다 상제에서는 이제 넘버 10번 되라. 아니 가르쳐고 다 천사 페이지 넘버를 샤샹진데 맞죠? 단다 먼저 몇 페이지 이제 넘버 10번 파츠고 시가 메와 있나? 아니 이제 넘버 10번 될래 차와지 천사 손지 페이지 제지 단위 진지다 딱 맞죠? 연합을 같이 시를 쓰는 좋았던 줘야 된다.
So with such delightful mind, one then visualize Buddha before oneself in the space. And so imagining that Buddha is delightfully gazing at oneself. It is true that although that it is we are the one who's lacking the motivations, the genuine motivations of actually having a vision of the Buddha, but so far as the Buddha's sight is concerned, his compassionate eyes is gazing towards all sentient beings without a break. So it is we who are actually lacking this actual motivations. So therefore, we are unable to have the vision, so we're unable to see actual Buddha in person. So now the reason why, because at this point, the consciousness that we are utilizing is only our sense consciousness most of the time. We are following our sense consciousness, the five sense consciousness. We hardly use our mental consciousness. And Buddha is someone who is endowed with this the enlightened marks of 30 and 80, 30 minor and major and 82 minor marks. With this, someone who is embodiment of those enlightened marks is always, by utilizing their subtlemost consciousness, is always gazing towards all sentient beings.
아니 타예비 신제 단지 아니 대령아 저기 천년 돼 있나 저런 돼 있나 해도여서 냥도 천년 제거여서 아니 강가이 미에 때된데 되어터도 된다니 아니 더버지 제거인 제네가 아니 신전도 소소야로 지 선발로 선한 용투에 된다라 나가서 가만히 있지 미버지
Buddha, who is embodiment of this enlightened marks of the major marks of 32 major and 80 minor marks, is then surrounded by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And imagining yourself being in their presence, and you yourself is surrounded by all sentient beings, and imagining that as you have a genuine desire to receive the teachings, so too all other beings who's in your surroundings have a similar wish or motivations to receive the teachings of the Dharma. So with this, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate.
아야 되게 그런 치바지 거는 강선버시 전에 상조 나지는 봐
With these motivations, the teachings that one is receiving today is the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, or Jiangju Lam Rim.
아이 당에 마테스로 통사 인테스 조다 비케제 당에 제스 사치 제테나 저 지스다 다자 나지 저 가사 중국 쯤바 때문에 제법이 저와지 당하는 개발지 비시 취지 저와지 저와님도 되게 저는 시제 다시하고 남방은 정말 제때 저이름 바시 사치 제테 갈래지 손에 되게 단도 소소롱만이 차와지 자다다
So now, as usual, let's read through these four major outlines. And when one is reading these four major outlines, not only just one is verbalizing, but one should internalize those four major outlines and reflect one's mind upon the meanings of those four major outlines. So here now let's begin to read the four major outlines, beginning from the greatness of the author's given in order to show the teachings as a noble source. And the second is showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender a respect for the teachings. And then the third is how to listen to the teachings in which the both teachings and its author are great. And this is then be followed by the fourth outlines, the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught actual instructions.
That's why such a about the young way change to go line. Chumbo Churang is young Chimotil, China Chavala, Churang, Charan, Carabasana, Namalagation, sit on the way to go, Sana, lot to me to go, Tomanchi, or tell the launches or sending things.
So first, now one should ask the questions. In order to receive unmistaken and authentic teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo or the Buddha, in other words, Dharma, teachings of the Dharma, what should we need? This is the question that one is asking. When one asks, to answer to these questions, one should say that first, in order to listen to the authentic teachings of the Dharma, I must first seek a right guru or the right teacher who actually teaches me the complete and unmistaken teachings of the Dharma, which actually talks about importance of relying upon a spiritual master. Guru
Temina tati songi tesa na ye mazu samba jibo yungi tanda ro ji na menji kaga gemo sho yungi so ri ji chu chang jo hian do ye na ya sas ke ma me se zo.
So now, although we all have a similar wish or the wishful thinking of actually having to meet or to see such an authentic teacher, such as Nagarjuna, Lama Tsongkhapa, and so forth. However, at this point, the fact that we are unable to see them, we're unable to have direct teachings from them. So what we need to seek at this point is we need to seek a teacher or the guru who wholeheartedly gives you the teachings, and not just intellectual teachings, but the experiential teachings of the Buddha Dharma. It's very, very needed. And if one is able to find such a guru, then one should follow the instructions, instructions given by the guru. And if one is able to do that, one will be able to reach where we want to be reached. Otherwise, if we keep going after different kinds of teachers who are actually very humorous and who says all kinds of jokes and it makes you very happy and laugh and so on. But then when you look at the end, when you look at yourself, and there's nothing that you can be reached where you want to be reached. So therefore, it is important to have guru, someone who can enables you to take you somewhere where you want to be. So this is very important.
Jenda Tuman, Jubi Champion Manans, Sage, Company. The Jubi Champion Manans in the song, teaching on Jubi go, send your corner percentage that Jubi, sending a Shabbat Lord Sage, Company. Sending a Shabbat Lord Teleson, sending a Lobo Logo Vision, Lobo Revel of Sanjay Majuba, the Lobo Logo Vision by Nishabaji. That Tamala song, teaching Tibachima Chilla, the Chiba the Jetibala Sage, Ombola song. 상생 제로바 논데 저장은 제세 제담바서 손에 제단이 비세 년 동반이 다 손에 제단이 비서라서 걸어로 비제 텔로바는 비제 텔로바 비림바 다텔 동반이 다 텔로바 비림바라니 쇼바절로 때 집어도 파세 타만이나 수지 동반지사 파세 타만이나 나지라 주 신내로 말에 신내도 하동이 편시바 되니 신내도 하동이 대니가 방급이 이제 신내도 하동이 대니 띵엔지 그게 되제 말에 대니 띵엔지 니바티 대니 띵엔지 그게 되제 봐 소바 신내도 하동 아니 제바 대니가 방급이 이제 고랭에 봐 소소로 제제 다 도망가 이제 다 소소로 제가 신내도 하동 제제 다 도망가 다 라통은 라통이 초대 봐 라통 여러 대 여, 라통 감비 감비 라통 주비 동bol라서 장대등에 등 장화등에 비되면서 델루주고 루주고 맞지 취재다 도만이 이제 도와대나 봐 도만이 이제 도와대나 봐서 도만이는 저 대권한이는 주비를 받을 대권한이 되라 봐서 다 동bol지서 대권 말에 동bol라니 아니 가장 먼저 그 비전 가장 먼저 그 비전세 대타랑 관계로 해봐 아니 동반이 이제 대권한이 이제 도와대나 봐 뭐 있어요 또 동bol라 가장 먼저 그 비전세 뭐 맞지 비가자 진로가 바로 잡아 되노네 가장 뭐 맞지 비 진로가 봐 다만 저기 그것을 봐봐 가르쳐 버렸어서 동바 땡연지 템버년에 신내지라 제 신내기 제라 아니 대권한이 동반이 또 하통질에 제비를 받대 시고 이걸로 동반이 또 하통을 제발라 동반이 시와라 아니 동반이 인다미 가장은지 세대 카도 되려
So now we are having having completed on discussions on the concentrations, the practice of concentrations and shamatha, or the calm abiding. Then currently having done that, and currently that we are on the discussions, our ongoing discussions is on emptiness. How do we come to realize emptiness? And by cultivating a special insight, or lakdong. And so in order to achieve this special insight, and what one need to do is one need to, first of all, whether that one is able to identifying, whether one is able to have a proper recognition of emptiness or not, is depends upon whether or not one is able to negate the actual object of negations, right object of negations, in other words. So it is therefore we are on the process of identification of the right object of negations.
나저 배제도에 달아래 좋아 쇼바스에서나 고 주부 담바기 송진기 돈노는 냐내진도 도바라 진리에자 다와생인데 라니기 일을 제바치네 제비기 정도 쳐네 아니 강전은 로네마도 송지 지고에 관한 용토에 진지레면도
So here when we talk about tawa and cheba, tawa which means the view, cheba which means the conduct. So when it comes to this two, so far as tawa is concerned, it is the one's practice of tawa, or the view, is not be perfected just by relying upon scriptures, but rather it requires a lot of analysis from one's own side. It is through utilization of one's analytical intellect, so that you'll be able to find, you will be able to cut the roots of doubts. Having cut the roots of doubt, you will be able to get the actual view of ultimate nature of reality. But when it comes to the cheba, which is the conduct, then of course it is important for us to rely upon scriptures, and the process of the practice instructions need to be relied upon the scriptures. So when speaking about tawa, or the view, which belongs to the wisdom category.
다티엔다 당간이 카투 된 러시아는 제사마리스타 내가 다 초석이 양슈 룰르다 드미트 유차 가려선데레 다다 마속이 디기 다다 라레 첨부게 아마게 жан루다부터 가르사나 엄마 타지 투모 많이 베타와데레 엄마 타지게 따와레 게소나 다 이거비 내절라 따치 탈레 내거스라나 지게 주티 총 깨점 시어체 엄마 타지게 따와레 게소나 아니 따치 강로라 내려서 타지 줘 인자는 단단히 육무비 내지게 따와데 엄마 타지게 따오고 의미 따와데.
So at this point, as we are following the teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo, the teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo, when it comes to the view of the Lam Rim Chenmo, it is based on Madhyamaka Prasangika's view, Madhyamaka Prasangika's standpoint. So therefore, if one can safely say that if one's view is something that is contradictory, something that is inconsistent with the view of Madhyamaka Prasangika, and one is surely, or it is a clear sign that one is fall into the one of the view of extremity, or the view of extreme views, in other words.
단디 장로라 가용데 가로 유딘의 주가 뒤상에 마서 자신이 주가 천이 주가 가용 대 가용데 가로 주타 현다듯이 대전은 전로벌 대전의 전로벌 생이 된지기 논의게 용지만 의지 용도와 다른 것을 시행돼.
So we are going through, when we go through this Madhyamaka Prasangika's standpoint, following the view of Madhyamaka Prasangika, the Madhyamaka Prasangika actually rejects intrinsic existence across the board, even down to the atoms. There's no such that exists intrinsically at all. So then when the Madhyamaka Prasangika is rejecting, then other philosophical tenets, such as Swatantika, Mainoli, and so on, are raising a lot of questions and arguing and having a lot of criticisms.
다 소소게 산다고 할래 뭐네 저도 텐트 하나에 맞대고 이때는 주가 생겼대 여사래다 말에 생겼대 다 나로 주게 다치 쳐서게 내대를 내가 가자 소소 문제 저기나.
So now what we should think of here is, now we should think of, is there anything that one can really find, even in one single entity, that can be found without depending upon any causes and conditions? That is now, it is up to us. Is there really something that really exists, something that doesn't depend upon anything? It is parts or so on and so forth. That's the very critical question that one should ask.
탄지 투모마이 비텐데다로와 뽑베 따산지마도 예전에 주고 여말에서 거의 파샤 산지르만 프로마 주고 트라이 세먼산지 여말에서 대년 저와 찾고 거의 여나 가진 거는 여래서는 로이 따산지만 여래 생이 뒤토는 여와치로 고아치 헤로 저와이나 아니 다 녀버려고 마도 가샤가세가나 유코노 때는 지 가사 가자라 젠데 여버 지지세 지다 알랭한 게 체도 유쇼 다 간제 된주이 지레서나 가샤다 로이 산나도라님의 해봐 연저 튀르 저도 말 그러니까 이게는 여대 매생에데 조시 저로 코나 산지마도 maybe 고아지레로잖아 텐데 참으로 고아지레로 저
So now, when you go through the analysis of how things really exist, whether things really exist by its own side, or there's other way around, is there phenomena exists in and of itself, or it doesn't exist in and of itself, but its very existence is mere imputation, or mere we're mere imputed by concept and term. So if one is able to have the idea of existence of the things is mere imputed by concept and term or name, then one is becoming closer towards the view of view of mathematical Sankhya. And so here now, the problem with us is not, regardless of how much object of negation that we may negate, but when it comes to the actual nature of reality, if once negated, one is negated the object of negations, and having negated that, when one gets the actual existence, if that existence is unable to connect with your understanding of dependent originations, then one is still not getting the actual view of mathematical Prasangika. So by rejecting those object of negations, finding the mere imputational entity, then you're actually having understanding of what we call Tenjung Tamu, which is the subtle interdependence is about to realized.
Tichi, Timo Collins, Tadiache, Tandela, Maya Nance, Zodola Sobarangi, Senji, Truby, Raji Mena, Teta Tenshi, Niba Tanchi, Tombi, Momedo, Regomedo, Debe, Yiga, Ransela, Mosun Sema Masona, Yunga Sema Dosa Mela, Yunga Sema Soa, De Rangi, Senila Sema Doa, De To, Robin Dene, so.
Now here we reach from the Lam Rim text, it is page 166, beginning from third paragraph. On this point, essential claims that essentialist claim that if forms, sounds, and so forth did not exist intrinsically, that is, were not established by a way of their intrinsic character, they would be non-things, devoid of all capacity of performing functions. They therefore assert that if the sensory consciousness are not valid perceptual cognition of the intrinsic character of the five objects, then there can be no valid cognition of the five objects. If sensory consciousness are the valid cognition of the five objects, then there will be a valid cognitions of the intrinsic characters of the objects.
Pena zunzi meshe de zula tsema sona zu rangi tseni chuba la tsema songore yunga de zu rangi tseni chuba de zu ni la ne yeme ki cheba chen yema de jil tsema songor se che ne loben de ye zula tsema sona rangi tseni chuba tsema masu bi chagre ma ta ji di ke char.
So in this particular paragraphs, the argument that is happening between Madhyamaka Prasangika and Madhyamaka Prasangika and Buddhist essentialist, referring to the Vaibhashika, Sudantika, and the mind only. So what they are actually saying is now, if once sensory consciousness is valid with regard to the object, form, sounds, and so forth, then that valid cognition should be valid with regard to its intrinsic character of the sounds, form, and so forth. However, from one's own side, from one's own view, according to Madhyamaka Prasangika, this is not so, it says. This cannot be, because in fact, instead that when your five sense consciousness are valid with regard to this five object, it should not be valid with regard to the intrinsic character of these five objects. That is what it's saying.
Yi denpa chupa nangpa njobi tsema la rangsen la tsema songa go chang yin dene zimba yinbe de nang njobi tsema la rangi tseni la tsema son mi go de jija bin je ba le son do ta ni ge je sa te ne
Also, that's
no ge di de bo ni do
so then here, the argument raised by response to the argument raised by the Buddhist essentialist, which already been had been explained earlier, where it says the Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanza says, it is not reasonable that worldly perception should cancel perceptions of reality, because worldly perceptions is valid only for the world, and because the object it observes have a false and deceptive quality. Therefore, since Chandrakirti is refuting the logician's position that sensory consciousness are valid regarding the intrinsic character of the object, he need to refute the position that they are simply valid cognitions. Consequently, Chandrakirti is not giving a general refutation of the position that there are valid cognition among the conventional consciousness. If we were, then there would be not then it would be not be reasonable for him to say that words as the world sees it and valid cognition simply non-deceptive consciousness, because he would have refuted validity very short of the convention, very sort of the conventional consciousness. Also, this would character can get declared where the presence directly and inferentially this you are I think lawyer mountain
to ni ma lo sha de ni ma lo sha de je je bin je ba le je den bi ton ye te kona ton se wa ji ba ma ye de den je te kona le sema ni yin bi she da de mi bi den ya zhen ba le yu chu jin ni de du bi she ro xie so ji de she le rang sen la sema yin ba ka bi sema zang ke mu go bien na 타네비 셰바 나라 세마 쭝고바 마예노 아치 데타 마예나 멜레 셰바네 제테나 세미 세마 니드 통와 시에송바 메리데 타네비 셰바 가이바 탄젤라 세마 케비 셰다 시세 레장 데이셰르 데이셰르 데타 세마 jelен jeten bi tön ngomba toba namba joba yeno she ngomba da ngoso da jeba da lo da jeje che tsami naja da tsama da gewa juwi shero tsama da jeje ngoni tuba kage tsama da jeja jeja da tön ale jabi dende mungo te teni le te da chang pinzi tön ne tuba juwi shi mare jote tsama da yona jeje tön 다 던져라 지지 던 다도 유나 세마다 던지지 세마다 제자니고 니치 주반에 마이너 시송소 소 베데네라리라 소 시송소 소
예, that's 망아 로샤 다게.
다다리 로샤
I overrated earlier. So then, in fact, when I left out one paragraphs and then I read it from the second paragraphs. So sorry about that. So let's read from this. Let's read from the beginning again. And according to the Master Chandrakirti, if something were established by way of its intrinsic character or the essence, then it would be something true. Hence, a valid cognition that possessed such a truly existence object would have to be valid regarding the object intrinsic character. However, because objects are false, and the valid cognition that possesses them does not have to be valid regarding their intrinsic characters. For the Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanza says. So let's read again here. It is not reasonable that worldly perception should cancel perception of reality, because worldly perception is valid only for the world, and because the object it observes have a false and deceptive quality. Therefore, since Chandrakirti is refuting the logician's position that sensory consciousness are valid regarding the intrinsic character of the object, he need not refute the position that they are simply valid cognitions. Consequently, the Chandrakirti is not giving a general refutation of position that there are valid cognition among the conventional consciousness. If he were, then it would not be reasonable. It would not be reasonable for him to say, as the word says, that the valid cognition is simply a non-deceptive consciousness, because he would have refuted the validity of every sort of conventional consciousness. Also, this would contradict Chandrakirti's clear word, where he presents the direct inferential, scriptural, and analogical valid cognition, saying, we therefore possess the world knows object with 4 valid cognitions. Chandrakirti refutes that essentially existent valid cognitions an object of comprehension. He does not refute valid cognition an object of comprehension that are contingently posited, dependent arising. That as same text clear word says, those are established through mutual dependence. When valid cognitions exist, then there are things that are the object of comprehensions. When there are things that are object of comprehension, then there are valid cognitions. However, neither valid cognition nor object of comprehension exists essentially. Therefore, the sensory consciousness is unimpaired. So that is no eye disease or an external internal cause of errors affecting it. Then it is accumulated in a conventional terms. So.
되게 된다는 저기 신주지 제와 있는 신주지 되어지를 빼나 랑만의 주거에서나 지 로데 말레콘이 유도 여급이 손지 랑만의 주소나 조세지 로데 말레콘이 유도 여급이 손지 단다 엄마 타지에 세비디 단다데 조세지 로 말레콘이 유도 여바데 까바레마도 유도 조세지 로다 이니고도 지질을 때는 여바데 까바 말이었어 세마세네 지자 때문에 지자세는 세마 때문에 요거를 세마 마이고는 유티니 지자 여바지 까고 요래스 단다데 고대오신.
So now here, if if the things that exist, what the mathematical percentage is saying here is now, if things exist, it should exist intrinsically. If things exist intrinsically, in other words, and it should exist without having, without having any subjective, which observe that, which subjective subject that which observe that object, which, however, it not so. The subject and object. When you say something that I have seen that, and you have seen that object, and you come to know that object. When as soon as you come to know that object, and that object is valid for you, and because before that object that you have not known about this object, and something that particular object did not existed for you, and that your very understanding of this object is based on that your valid cognition that observed this object. And this is what the Chandrakirti is saying, or the Madhyamaka Prasangika is saying, our subject and object are interdependent, it says. It is interdependent. It's not that it is independent of each other. It is interdependence, it says.
저로 신도인데 시에서는 단다 신도에 가서 로이 잡아지 마대고 코너만 여비기 천나는 가서 쉬우지 세보도 장정보는 천만도 저로 신도로 지산도나 로 조제 저론들 지라 마대고 코너 세도도 여비기 천나 쉬우지 쉬우참 거야
신도인데 알기
저로 신도를 저대 신도 다를 가이네
let's so now let's take an example of the tree in your backyard. That you have a tree in your backyard, and then at the moment that you think of the tree, and to us the idea that we have the idea of having the tree is the existence of the tree is independently. We just can't think of how the tree is existed, what is the object or actual mode of existence of the tree. We're just thinking of the tree exists in and of itself without depending on any other causes and conditions. This is the kind of tree that we're actually perceiving at this point.
다 된들이 신도줄에 차지하는 된들 하바이찬의 시에서는 나중 무슨 통도 유치를 리드지 되는 용어지. 아니 대래 야즈게 시에서는 랑기 차시 먹고지는 때네 고 초소로 지래 신도스 라바레스. 양 차시를 바세요데 반 다된 процес은 로비가라 또 다장지마도 유대는 좀 같은 게 계시 시에비가라 타마 땡거서데 로이 샤장지 된저이 통로 무슨 신도지 통로 된저 차라 연구하는 거 하고.
So what we need to understand here it's a crucial to understand is that with, by observing the tree, based on observing the tree, one should have the ideas of all those subtleties of interdependence. And this can be done on the basis of continuous practice. Because first, when you think of the tree, and a tree appears to oneself, as if tree exists in and of itself. But then as we are the follower of the mathematical personality, we think of, this is not so. This is, however, it's not so. The tree existed by depending upon its own causes and conditions. When you have this idea of very existence of the tree is depending upon its own causes and conditions, then you are actually stepping into understanding of the gross level of dependent originations, gross level of dependent originations. Then you go further by saying that not only that the existence of the tree is depending upon its own causes and condition, but it exists by depending upon its own parts and its own components and so on. When you go to the parts, when we talk about the parts instead of its own causes and conditions, the parts of the tree exist depending upon its part, then it goes to the little subtle level, the slightly subtle level of different originations. Not only that, when you further investigate and to see, thinking about going to each and every parts of the tree, where is this tree? The very treeness that I'm seeing is where? Where is this? Where is this located? Is this in some part of the tree, or is it exists with its causes and conditions, or where this tree is actually existed? When you go through that, you will not be able to find the tree. You will not be able to find the tree that you really think there's something that exists. And at this point, your very idea of existence of a tree is mere imputed by one's own thought and term and concepts. And that's when you have this, then you're actually stepping into the subtlemost dependent originations.
Teaching ngaso ye ti shindu de rangle jakshe chi ji teme de yobi sun sansi de da shindu koron go le shinju chi de tende ni ye to no lo la shinju chen de jeba che ni bo de de da dang de ngi bi ne si ni ji ba yin sa ne yin sa ma ne de ro.
So now what we should think about is now, when we normally think of the tree, and when we go through all those critical analysis and finding the tree, which one is more accurate, which one is more reality, which one really correspond to reality? It is correspond to reality, the one that actually one we always see as a tree, or it corresponds to reality when we go through when we find the tree, that after we go through this critical analysis. So we need to think about that.
Da yu ngi bo ne zu ji ka ti ji na ma zo de yi jakshe chi ju ba ni da shi den bo yo ba ji ji to no chong na de ke ne ani ye da be ka za yin de rang yi ja la yin de yi jakshe ti she go ya da yu ngi bi ne zu yi to no shin ju me je wa che ni jakshe chi tu chu tu tu ba yi de ne yo ba ko ne ji ja ji be to le ge che ga la ma zo nya da de cha go se wo ra ni mo tu so yon tu go ji se.
So it is because of this, not being able to analyze how things appears and how things really are, and we are taking for granted of having an idea that things really exist as it appears to oneself, as it appears to one, because the things appears to us as things that exist in and of itself. It is its own side or intrinsic existence, and this is what we are taking for granted and thinking that is the reality, and that brings about all those negative thoughts and emotions, or because the ignorance is there, and once ignorance is there, this will then give the birth of all those negative thoughts and emotions.
Dan tong si da ne chi ma tin se de ro tong si de ne chi ma tin se de nga yu tin ne che ba din ne che go ma ma do nga so ra da de ra ba i to nga so ka la ka za chi nga so ra da ta tu go.
So therefore, this contradiction between appearance and reality is always happening to us. We are not really taking our time to investigate how things really exist. If one is able to take time and then analyze, then one will be able to find there is a big gap between how things appear and how things really are.
다 됐어요. 제발 됐어요. 로아가 저 지금 남바 연습이 계속 말해. 다 이거비 내지 더 넣어라. 소수 단지로서 소수 싫어도 소수 제발 제로. 싫어서도 소수 제발 제로만 싫어지면 또 이렇게 제가 만드니 싫어 유머진스 차서는 주스해야 말어. 대주지 싫어도 이 제발 제 이거비 내지라. 대무비 내지라 되는 지나. 아니 다들 간제 채널로 추셔샤. 다들 쥐어도 여서 말해. 세계에 소수 나주 배제통의 주통이나 아니 오늘 취지 지나서 작으러.
So we should always analyze, taking our time to take one's time and then analyze how things really are. We should utilize our intellect, our wisdom, or to share up. One's pranja must be utilized to really to find how things really are. Because without utilizing this, then if we think of everything that appears to oneself is the real existence or the true existence of how things appears to oneself, as things appears to oneself, then there's a big danger of falling into the wrong path, because what we are doing here is having this kind of idea is what we call Sharam Nyomonchen, which means the effective wisdom. And effective wisdom is far more dangerous than the other afflictions. So therefore, if one go through this analysis, then one will be able to find how things really are, and you will not be really, one will not become under the control of the effective wisdom.
아야, 그만 쟁아. 나 그만 쟁어 거냐. 소 그만 단데 그만 인천도 다 봐서.
Let's take a 15 minutes break here.
Alright. 당연히 말로 된다고인다.
Let's go to readings.
너네도 내가 단지로 대체로 좋다 나한테 엄마 탄지와내서 센점비 바지게 네 텐데 차라 돈은 되지 돈은 로라 네 농편들라 저버긴도 다래 내가 맞는데 흘려 쉬우면 용로는 쉬우면 와이나 지 간에 아파트 라다제 투고 말해 그래서 추고 말해 내가 그 오미 이종 인사도 그 신용도 차도네 야고요 왔어.
So the discussions that we are having is all the discussions among the differences, different position of the different philosophical tenets, such as Madhyamaka, mind-only, Vairashika, Sudantika, and so forth. So in order to have, since we have not gone through the detailed studies of those tenets, we may not have, proper understanding of that. However, based on the reading and listening to the teaching itself, that we are having a general information, we are getting the general information or general understanding of the tenets, their position and different positions, different tenets, we're actually leaving a very good imprint, and as well as receiving the oral transmissions of the Lam Rim Chenmo at the same time.
맞아 감가 띠무이 내발에 단단데 띠무이 내세에 아니 데로 가서 띠무이 해로 맞아 라는 내봤다 비디시 아니 라마라 가서 멤버답에 뒤쳐라 아니 멤버답에 뒤셔서디 단다기 가서 시엔데 가리면서나 팀무 말이 바히네 예전에 가서 팀무 말이 바히네 바래 소소 먹어야 진짜진 말.
So all of this is needed for us. All these explanations and are really needed for us because at this point we are ordinary beings. We are suffering from the sickness of ignorance or timuk or avidya. We are suffering from the sickness of this ignorance. So therefore, we need to take those medicines of the position of the different positions of the different philosophical tenets, which are the actual medicine to remedy our sickness of this ignorance. So therefore, in the teachings that we have, there is a saying that one should consider one's guru who is giving the teaching as one's physician, and one should look at oneself as a patient, and the dharma, the teaching that you are receiving, should be considered as a medicines. That's the medicine that we are actually taking at this point to remedy our sickness of ignorance.
대나라를 소비 신하게 투질레비 녀바메나 마리벨레비 온게 온실라소바 너 장신 매진 아레 장신 매진 장신 유번유 아레 윤진바나이 추베네 타니비 시지 말로발라 메네 또 주발레죠 통화점바 넘버인데데 ombo ombo chedeno chende onjeno je shebane ombo leje shete loba de neba mebe ombo tuna je zonwa kanshi jite je tote jete nyele denye hamane jete nyele loba nomba ja je tani bi sheba da yu la tani bi sheba nyela de shijin lo malo nyes jago ombo la nebi ju ombola nebi juk mari ombola nebi nana yoba ne junde le sondo junde le jana ne lo de.
So let's read through this again. Read from this paragraph again. Therefore, if the sensory consciousness is unimpaired, and this is no I, this is that is no I, this is or other internal and external cause of error is affecting it, then it is accurate in conventional terms. It is mistaken in terms of appearance, because under the influence of ignorance, it apprehends its object as though it were intrinsically existent. This is existence, which it is not. Yet this does not contradict its conventional accuracy. The Chandrakirti's commentary on the middle way says, also perceivers of the falsities are of the two types, those which clear sensory of the faculty and those with impaired sensory faculties. A consciousness with the impaired sensory faculty is considered wrong in relation to the consciousness with the good sensory faculties. Those objects known by the world and apprehended with the 6 unimpaired sensory faculties are true for the world. The rest are posited as unreal for the world. Thus, conventional consciousness and their object are of two types: accurate in relation to the conventional consciousness and inaccurate in relation to conventional consciousness. With regard to these internal conditions that impaired sensory faculties, Chandrakirti's explanation of the middle way commentary says.
대전은 가서 때에 투비 주세네 당가서 메시비 기제텔에 니시베 만 노드비 주세네디 노비주 추세는 노아르 노비주텔라 내거기 주지당 푸기 주주 푸기 주당 가서 통화면 발레비 다지 말이 발생되지 아니 최지 주생이들라 아니 당가서 지 최지 주생이들라 나기 주도 시기 주지 니여세게 아니 그 나기 주 가르제잖아 아니 맞시요보다 노드이 주.
So here we have there are two causes of errors, internal and external. And so internal cause of error and external cause of error. And then also it says that primarily one can also divide the errors. There are two kinds. One is the temporary cause of errors and the permanently cause or the long-term, in other words, long-term cause of errors. The long-term cause of errors is our self-grasping mind. The self-grasping at intrinsic self and phenomena is the long-term error or cause of errors. And when it comes to the short term or the temporarily or the advantageous cause of error is two kinds, external, internals.
Ambola ne be nang gi ju nang ka sa ju nang na yo ba ne ji ju de le de la ra ri ta mi se la so ba ta de ra so ba la so ba na ne ambola ne be nang gi yo ba yin no wa chi xie song ba ta ro sa shu ro ne yo ba ne de ni le ne ti ma da chu ta me long da pu la so ba na Jubi tala soba nang dang yume yu ze yu dang di chiba jina nyewa juba la soba nang ne ambola tubi jin shuru na yoba yinde teta ne ambola nyoba sheba na nyoba sheba nang na yoba teta meba zunye da tacha da miju chula soba zimbi junjoro aji 대전에 미치 캔라 소바당 저도 장비 하다 메라 소바다 장 셰바 샤오버지 이제 너바 셰바네 대다당 양다바 마인 주비 타라 소바 대다당 제서 바바 따나 다서 따노 다지 지바 따나 되지 셰 조탕년 바당 댄시 따나 나지 이지 셰바를 르비 지송데 Mila sobi yi lubi ji ni la soba yin no aji. Dena maribam zin tangji yi ne, wane cheba ta tanya dang me muen chang mariba lebi neban de nubi jim zong sondo.
So now we're reading through that's the cause of internal and external errors. The first it says eye disease, jaundice, and so forth, as well as the eating datura and so forth, are internal conditions that impair the sensory faculties. With regard to the external condition that impair the sensory faculties, that same text says internal condition that impair the sensory faculties include sesame oil, water mirror sounds spoken from within the caves and such, as well as sunlight at certain times and places. Even in the absence of the internal conditions that impair the sensory faculties, this cause the apprehension of the reflections, echoes, and water of mirage, and so forth. You should understand that this is also the case with the medicines, mantras, such used by the conjurers, and so forth. As for what impairs the mental sensory faculty, there are those just mentioned, as well as incorrect tenets, etc., and false inferences. And thus, he has the bad tenets and false reasonings are conditioned that regard to the mental consciousness. He says the conditions such as sleep also degrade the mental consciousness associated with the dreams and so forth. Therefore, you should not consider the impairment of this affected by the ignorance as a cause of importance in this context. Even though the object apprehended by the ignorance does not exist even conventionally, as well as will be explained below.
내가 저 계속 가르쳐버렸잖아. 시에나리 일을 추무추게 시워라. 단 지tembe 타냐라 배나 추지 체치 추지 시에서나 아니 배나 가서 추바슈 첨부에서나 가서 세번 하고 그랬어요. 양 멜로기 존에 놀라 라니 존에 도데 고 지신이 바타와 대 나올래 얼마를 실려야 봐. 양 주탕이 봐 던지게 해병원에 니 레전드 정하시 얼마를 생기들 체치 추지기 아니 이지 시바 해봐쇼 봐. 그래서 단다 뭐에 내서라로 뭐 비내서라.
So all those errors or the impaired caused by external and internal conditions, right? External and internal causes that are very clearly mentioned in the text itself. Because when one has one has impaired vision due to some kind of sickness, impaired by one's jaundice and so forth, and one will be the mountains, the snow-capped mountains will be appear to oneself as a yellow, although it is not. So similarly, there are many other conditions that appears to oneself, and it is oneself, and it is another way around in reality. So those are many other, external causes that cause the impairment of one's, faculties, mental and sensory faculties. And then there's another internal, cause of our errors are, not believing in law, not having a genuine appreciation, law of cause and effect, impermanent, and so forth, due to studying of the listening to the wrong tenets or the wrong, instructions given by the wrong teachers.
내게 변다 가르치 버려서는 지탱비 탄예별로 유들을 참아 숨어서 지탱비 탄예 시스걸 시고로 추지제 매와이나 아니 유들은 주서나 유들을 참아 숨세 주거래 랑이 천지지 주거를 숨어서 계시셔가 말해 계자로 다 추지게 해서나 로바 임바든 지탱비 탄예들 제투거래 지탱 단지 오만 주바 논도한데 제세테레 지탱바기 랑 줌바 통토에기 이 리지여서 추중원제 도에기 다 푸지 추지된 지템비 타니 원진 두고 말에 대해봐잖아. 근데 랑기 천이 주바데 랑기 천이 주바 랑제 슬라이드 해치도. 된 되게 말했었는데.
So it is if one's faculties are not affected by the cause of those the cause of errors, then one's faculty, if one's faculty is is something that is not really, is affected by those errors, then whenever one look at the conventional phenomena, and then one's faculty is valid with regard to this conventional phenomena, there's nothing wrong with that when it comes to the conventional phenomena. However, if one's faculty is then affected by those cause of errors, the errors that we talked about earlier, is internal and external errors, then one's faculty, the one's valid sensory consciousness or the mental consciousness with regard to the conventional phenomena is then not a correct, it is incorrect.
근데 단단 가서 시비가라 저런 저기 인텔레 제법 가시 제 초고래다 내지 상제 이까리 내지 이까리 세대도 저거 진여 말이라니 랑이 나체 배제도네 레도면 다이게 그 하세레마도 내려지 가서 대바 찍고 이게 사실 싸우는 말이 나 대바다 저 하세 저착 말 녀다니를 봐 싫어 제선 라생이
So at this point, the discussions of the subject matter that we are going through, it's not really the emphasizes on the scriptural authority. We're not relying on that. In fact, we are asked to investigate by ourselves. Whatever it is said in there, it is required for us to investigate and analyze very carefully. Is that how that, all the analyses and discussions that we have in this particular passage are really correspond to the reality, or it is discordant with the reality. So we should analyze ourselves.
Sanjay seje da seje lebata na ga lawa sha kishimi se tan de seje de ngai ne se ha de da yang ma zu de ba da ji xiang chu san de xie de jiao ma shi da ji mo shu ji le ko de xie jiao de ma do ka tu xie es ke men do de seje de so so ra ya yo ne je ba je ne re du men do sen de ro yi lang ga ra ji ma do de le di jiao lo to ba ji le yang ji mi xie de ha ge ji ji mi xie se ga ta de le ne chen ji ge mi xie ga je de 맞아 저한 시험에 생긴데 선제단이 많이 시험에 있어요. 그래서 제가 거라 뭐지 이제 라자도 또 두면도 와. 대고 그 수준치당 대바치 이제는 거야지. 단단 뉴스제텔라 소소랑이 아버랑이 나줘야는 배제도네. 제가 말했으면 로열이마도 지지 전화적인 진면을.
It is therefore when it comes to analysis of the reality, actual nature of reality, then it really requires one's intellect. It really requires intellect that examine whether or not that one's very way of thinking with regard to the reality correspond to the reality or not. That is very, very important. It is therefore Buddha has stated that just as a goldsmith, undertake an intensive examination by burning, rubbing, polishing, and refining it in order to find the authenticity of the gold. In the same manner, whether one's view is real, corresponding to the reality or not, must be analyzed by oneself. One has all those intellect within oneself. It is a question of whether we are using or not, whether we are utilizing those, intellect to really to find the reality. So, however, when it comes to the practice of bodhicitta and law of cause and effect and so on, then this is a different case. We really need to rely upon the scriptural authorities as well as one's genuine faith and devotion to those teachings. So therefore, whatever the teachings that is given by the Buddha is based on interdependence, based on understanding of interdependence. And there's no such teachings that are given apart from interdependence. So if one's understanding of the teachings and one's way of looking at the world, seeing the world, understanding the world, which is contradictory to the dependent origination, so the contradictory to the interdependence, then one is not really understanding the teachings of the Buddha.
Kete ambi sheba ngabo de chuji yenje neba meba de deda tanya de matu na deda la na yi rangi tseni tanya de yo go la ji rangi ba me chen de ba ji de yang lo ben de ne sheba ma yin no ji de na chuba de go ba deda na sheba deda zuda la so ba tanya de namba ju bi tsema me de tanya de zuzo la chubi shira shena joba shade de la boben le de je ne zuzo tanya de rangi tsenji ji chubi ngo yoba sheba yede sen zambe genda la rangi tsenji ji chubi ngo mebe tsenji ngo ni meba deba goba na genda la toba sheba genda la ni re marke toba sheba re taba ni je taba shene ngo da cheba de dobi ta ta lo la tanya de rangi tsenji ngo ni meba de na yin ke ngo la kwa da ba joro she ka be na yin tanya de rangi tsenji ji juba ngo sheba selo 대다 뭐니 뭐 셀로 상하데 용지 되나 그 다제 되어 있어. 셀로 세대 용사.
Last.
응.
시원 정보를 구하다 버주로 시원의 tanyi 생기들 뭐이셔 셀러스 라서. So now here, it says, if the five sensory consciousness that are unimpaired by the cause of error, other than ignorance, are not mistaken conventionally, then the intrinsic character that appears to them must exist conventionally. However, the Master Chandrakirti does not assert such. Therefore, we must assert that the sensory consciousness are the mistaken. In that case, it is not feasible for those consciousness to be valid cognitions that possess things such as forms and sound in conventional terms. Why? In conventional terms, they are mistaken with regard to forms. Reply. On this point, the Master Baba Viveka assert that it is the nature of forms that such exist conventionally by way of their own character. So, the Chittamatra argued that imaginary constructs lack characteristic nature because it is not their nature to exist by way of intrinsic character. To refute them, Baba Viveka investigates the agent, that object involved in the process of imaginary constructions. He says that if they assert that the terms and minds that construct entities and the features like intrinsic characters conventionally, then they are inappropriately denying the existence of the contingent entities. Therefore, it is clear that Baba Viveka says that contingent entities have intrinsic character conventionally.
되게 된데 계속 가르치고 왔었는데 이제 봐. 엄마 탄저하면 저 연수 줘봐 되게 당가 또 지지를 잡는 존재 엄보시 존재 온시 참아이나요. 아니 마투바레스 엄마 탄저하면 저 마투바인 바 가르잖아. 줄로 소바 줄랑게 천이지 줘바레스라지. 엄마 탄저하게 줄랑게 천이지 줘바 매와 있잖아. 존재 참아대 아니 rangi senyu tuba nana zu jo tubare yasi timara ta dinari kanda kese karshen lobe le denji ge zu rangi senyu tuba sheba de karsan lobe le denji ge senzo ma nejo tombe kola ani yawa rangi senyu tuba tegmare se lawa dege ani lobe le denji kono ge yawa rangi senyu tuba sheba sebo de se lawa de ta tanjo me che yonso zoba de zu rangi senyu tuba shebi chaba de sonwa
Tenjo menje.
Tanjo menje. Da lobe lede je ye zu zhan je cenji zhu de xebe ge doba ye yin jiro. Da sen lobe lede je ye sen zamba la ga yun bi ga la. Ani deta ne je de jiao rang ge cenji zhu ba te ge ma de song ba da ga rang ge lobe lede je kono ge jiao rang ge cenji zhu ba ken le ba se bo re sha song. 다 가지 온실라 랑기 천이 좀 나오 있잖아요. 온실에 맞추어 되거래. 타조 이 랑기 천이 좀 나비잖아. 온실에 출신되고. 내가
So here now, there's an argument between Madhyamaka Prasanjika and those that are the Madhyamaka Swatantika, and by also mentioning about the actual proponents of the minority schools and so forth. Here now, it is clearly mentioned in this in the text that Madhyamaka Swatantika masters such as Baba Viveka, accepting that the form and so forth has existence, has an intrinsic existence. It is intrinsically existence. However, when it comes to the Madhyamaka Prasanjika, the form that exists, there's no argument about it. But the form doesn't exist intrinsically. That is what the Madhyamaka Prasanjika is saying. So it is therefore now the essential point here. The point here is now when the Madhyamaka Swatantika, such as Baba Viveka and so on, are saying that the valid sensory cognition, the valid cognitions, is mistaken with regard. It is not mistaken with regard to the form, as well as the intrinsic existence of the form. It is from the Baba Viveka's assertions. However, when it comes to the Madhyamaka Prasangika, there's no wrong about the valid cognition, which is valid with regard to the form. However, it is not right with regard to the intrinsicness of the form. The valid cognition is not valid. In other words, it is not valid intrinsic existence of the form. It's not valid. But the valid cognition is valid with regard to the form, but not valid with regard to the intrinsic existence of the form. That is the main point here.
대다양 제라에 니시 nga bi shiro drama le chi de kete zu she sha wa yile joba dan tsu de jobi ken ta bi ngo ni kan yin ba de me do she na ne ngo bo la guan de ba yin de yile joba da tsu de joba guan de bi shiro she son bi shiro de yin de she do she de de ju ji de ne jo she ba wa ta ken ta bi ngo ne chen ni ngo ni me ba ni ji ngo ni me do she sa wa de kete zu she sha wa ngoni da cheba de yile joba da number toba da situ joba da tanyen dobi ngo kanyi ba de chenyi ngoni me ba nije ngoni me da shena ne gyunzo de shenche ongi kuwan de ba yinbe merungwa dende she jatan lu dubi shenwa la tanyen do rangi chenyi me da shen doba kudes sombi shiro de la chenyi ngoni me bi chenyi ne rangi chenyi tang rangshin yin la sen zambi de me ba gyun da la doji shenwa la chenyi de yuwa ba rangshin yuwa la yuwa jang yen le jie wa rang le ji yu mo me be mo ni me de xie xia wa de ba yin no do de gong zhe le zhang song de
Along the same lines, Baba Viveka's lamp for the Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise, Parjan Paradipa, Mula Madhyamaka Karika, Bharti, which is his comments on the 25th chapter of the Nagarjuna's text as follows. If you say that very nature of construct, that the mental and verbal expressions does not exist, then you are mistakenly denying things you are mistakenly denying mental and verbal expressions. In this explanatory commentary on Baba Viveka's lamp for the fundamental treatise, Prajna Paradipa Tika, on this, the Master Avaloki Deshvarata says, this statement by Baba Viveka indicates the following. As to the nature of the imaginary construct, the Yogacharyans say that it has no nature in as much as it has no characteristic nature. In the case of entities and attributes such as form, what is the nature that construct mental expressions? The conception and verbal expressions, conventions, if you say that there is no such nature because they have no characteristic nature, this is unsuitable, since you would be inappropriately denying even a conventional existence in this. That are in these things that are contingent. Sorry. He says that if you assert that those contingent entities that are included among these imputing terms and minds like characteristic nature, even conventionally, then it is an inappropriate denial. character in the phrase like characteristic nature refers to the intrinsic character or the intrinsic nature. Chitta moderns assert that imputations do not have such characters, but the contingent entities do. Contingent entities do, and therefore exist intrinsically. Nonetheless, because the contingent entities arise from other things, they have no self produced nature, and hence Chittamatans hold that they lack nature in this sense. The Buddha explained in this way in the sutra, unraveling the intent meaning. So here, when it talks about with other part nature and thoroughly established nature and imputational nature. So those are the three characters or the three characteristics which is propounded by the mind-only schools. For instance, let's take those three characteristics with regard to the form. That those three characteristics can be found within the form. The form itself is the other part nature because it is coming into being due to its own causes and conditions. That is what is called other part nature. And the form is lack of duality of subject and object is said to be the Yongdup or the thoroughly established with regard to the form. And the permanent form is said to be the imputational character of the form. So therefore, in the mind-only schools can establish those three characteristics within the one basis, such as form. Thank you, Ed. Look, kunta de kashari girmiche.
Zui kinda melo ache. Da zui kinda le menji kinda ro charo ro zu demba to zimba so de chijana. De ke che mesha de nga so jön chen shen na taba yiri yang so ba de kinda ja.
Kunta da shawa yon to sendi. Lossless. So this other part nature and thoroughly established nature as well as imputational nature can be it is also accepted by the Madhyamaka Prasankhika as well. But there are different ways, although it has the same term with regard to conventional, imputational and, they're thoroughly established phenomena. But when it comes to the actual meaning of those are completely different. For instance, Madhyamaka Prasankhika's standpoint here, the form itself is other part nature. It is the mutually accepted by both Madhyamaka Prasankhika and as well as the Chittamatra, right? When it comes to the thoroughly established of the form, then that's a completely different. The thoroughly established of the form here, according to Madhyamaka Prasankhika, here refers to the non-intrinsic non-intrinsicness of the form is said to be the thoroughly established form. And then imputationals, the Madhyamaka Prasankhika's, all those permanent phenomena, such as space and so on, are said to be the imputed phenomena.
도 군데 레자 대신데 시나서 최통제 원이 매바 공바전도 somba 로베카마 라실라네 도테티 공원이 매바 som비 공바 덴베 오밀랑 타니다 저와 로데 덴베 셔 네비트 코나 좀 주번제바 예노 시 영원라 당바 원이 로다바 켄타 예베 데메바네 타니도 영원 랑게 체니지 여바 데 그원데바 우미 된바 셰데 로벤데네 타니데 랑게 체니지 여바 셰마네 세레 타니데 랑게 체니지 여바 셰도 존제 레네 베나 서도 안테 맞지로 샤지
Also, and the goal is to make some of the
로베 랑랑기 셰바 로베 베나 로베 랑랑기 셰바 데 히우다 체니 원이 메바다 단지 껴달라 그데 로고레스 개체데 셰도 소에다
That's So now the sutra unraveling the intended meaning. He said that there was an ulterior meanings behind this statements. Behind the statements in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, which says that all phenomena like nature. In this regard, the Master Kamalashila said in his Illumination of the Middle Way, by indicating that intended meaning of the three types of the naturelessness, which we talked about earlier, three types of naturelessness. The sutra, the sutra unraveling the intended meaning, teaches that the middle way, free from two extremes. Consequently, the system is set up is intrinsically definitive. Kamalashila's argument is that the sutra unraveling the intended meaning teaches the meaning of the middle way by showing that the ultimate nature that is superimposed upon contingent entities is an imaginary construct and is thus non-existence, while also the teaching that contingent entities have intrinsic characters conventionally, thus avoiding an inappropriate negations. Hence, the Master Kamalashilas also assert that the object have intrinsic character conventionally. Chandrakrit's explanation of the middle way commentary says, that's all.
rāngshīn tā tēnzhē xēpa jīn jī yīwāng kēntā yīmbē sāng jē jī yu tu nē yōng zhū tu jō bē ngō nī sōng jī nāng yā xēpa xē nē dō yu gōng bā xēpa xā wō dō yu gōng dō gāng tēnī mā yī xē dēn jī chāng dēn sōng bā tō nē chāng yā xīn xē bēn zhē bā sōng bē sā gōng dō gōng zhē jī ngōni sōngjī nāngzhā chāngdā dā shēba sē lā jī rānglū jī kyuñṭā nē yīngwāng lā rāngshī yōba zē bē yīngwāng lā tānyā tō rāngi cēnī jī chūbī rāngshī mē shēbē yīnō sēn tsāmbā nāngzhī kyuñṭā mā tō yīngwāng yōng chū yī cēnī mē ārē rē ngōni mē bā mēndō bē tēnī rāngi ngōng rāng cēnī rāngshī ndōba nē dō gōngjē tsō tēmbā nāng lā 대실 되니 대 담바 주바 되발라 로베 산제 장도 로베 나와 잡베네 랑게 체니지 주비 뭐 여나 뎀바 주바 셰라 로베 레덴 제나 소베네 대상제 대 담바 주바 미제바 가사 주바 미제바 이노 소도 제야 센점베 소도
For example, a snake is an imaginary construct when convinced in relation to a rope, but is perfectly real when convinced in relation to an actual snake. Similarly, a nature is a imaginary construct when convinced with regard to the contingent entities, which are dependently arising fabrications. However, as the object of Buddha, it is considered perfectly real. Understand that the presentation of the three nature in this way, then explain what the sutra unraveling the intended meaning means. He states this as a commentary on the lines from the commentary on the middle way, by saying that any sutra that explains something that is not reality and sets forth the provision should be understood as such and interpreted. Thus, it is obvious that they consider the sutra unraveling the intended meanings, presentations of the three natures of the provisionals. In his own system, the imaginary refers to the intrinsic existence of the contingent. Hence, Chandrakirti does not assert the contingent entities have intrinsic character or the intrinsic nature, even conventionally. The Chittamatra accepts the non-existence of the characteristic nature only for the imaginaries, but do not assert with regard to the contingent and the perfectly real. Thus, they assert that those two have essential character, intrinsic nature. It appears that this assertion is based mainly on the sutra unraveling the intended meanings. Because of this, they assert that the contingent and the perfectly real exist ultimately. The Master Buddhapalita and Chandrakirti assert that if something were to exist by way of intrinsic character, then it would have to be truly existence. Masters such as Baba Viveka assert that this alone does not imply that something ultimately exists.
Oma Ranjipa Oma Ranjipa Yonsu Zoba ye, and Seni Sunga Rangi Seni Jugure, Desanji Demba Tuba Maria Sarach. Oma Tanjo Rangi Seni to the Demba to be Children Rangi Seni to the Disa Mares. That is Rimbache in the Gere. Randu Lechi Shegoro, Tangasohi.
Long. And the Ranjube and Jason under
Senzambe
Ranjube.
Ranjipa ye, Rangi Seni Jutuba Shejang. Demba tuba shego mare. Oma senzambe demba tuna rangi senyi tuba chibeche.
Yes. So now here, the mind only asserts the intrinsic existence of phenomena are of two kinds. One is the other power phenomena, and then thoroughly established phenomena are said to be the intrinsic existence. It is intrinsically existence. And then the imputational phenomena is lack of intrinsic existence. It doesn't have any intrinsic existence. This is Manoli school's assertions. So when it comes to the Madhyamaka Swatantika, what it says here is, although everything, things in event, exist intrinsically or inherently, they do not have true existence. That is the Madhyamaka Swatantika standpoint. Okay, everything that exists are intrinsically existent, but they are not truly existent. However, when it comes to the Madhyamaka Prasangika, true existence and intrinsic existence are the same. Therefore, they reject across the board of true existence and intrinsic existence of entire phenomena. So those are the different ways of assertions of the different philosophical tenets. So with this, we run out of time, and we'll stop here with this. And to let you know that I will not be able to teach next week. I have to go somewhere. Copy or Rinpoche?
어제 아니 로무 그때 단다 가서 가서 종소니 이제 거기가
Okay.
딘치 집어다 시간가 가서 여러 질러서
So
되게 kelly
it is Rinpoche has to visit somebody's home for ritual performance for the deceased person, sorry.
대제대 가서 진짜 nga 봐라 nga 비 딸이 nga 년가 되는 거기서 주변 나라디 안기 고쳐져서 이게 저기 초다 저기 창조 지도로도 거기서 된 돈이 조금이라서
So
안다도 사바디 지게도
and then also there is the church dance performance by the nuns from the nunneries of South India will be performing those dances in association with the church practice at the Buddha monastery in February, I think on Saturday or on Sunday. So if you want to go there, you can go there and we'll cancel our teachings.
때문에 같이 아니 그 개념은 다리 건에 사다와래도 사다와를 간에 아칸 되는 거 다리 주지도 주들을ညွှန်း내려서도 개패마거나 코스던 동의하는 것이
다리 굴 사가다 왜 나름지 사가다
다리 건에 갖다 사가다 저 지래도
사가다 녜다 세베 정어다 대바이 녜뇽니데
알레 아니 다리 주저 코스는 다리 가서 주지
다리 굴도 앞에서 여도
마 다리 건에 갖다 저 지래다 셈이다 다리 걸을 쳐버지 제디 다리 주지도 좀 되게 때 같이 사다하기 뒤 정보 상고기 잡변만 님만나 거서 눈에 있어요. 당가 좀 기초좀 동의하는 것이 대제디 다른 데는 사다스네 지나가비 된타니 바텔라 페치 거서 사 눈에 송이야나 뒤세지 면도아
If you are joining a Nyungni practice at Gyude Monasteries, anyone?
다리 된데도 주지니나
It's just either 10 or 11. I don't remember either. I saw their
주지 전에는 처음인데
so it is one of those weekends. So if you are interested.
예, 그렇지. 아니 되네바 다리 저것도서라 양리로 같이 지어서도 딱 그래서 로그인이나 메시 대리제된 가서 사와다한테 간디 차사래 마고 사와다는 게 챌린지를 메시면 도와 제가 장한테서 대체게 키우면 도서서
제가 장다 데발레 근데 사와다에 제가 장한테다 지려 니뇽니씩 되고요 이제
되게 사와다에 제가 장아 야마텔라 대 잡배만 키우면 도서서
그냥 가이케 왜냐면
잡포부 키우도 잡포부
단다 디파라지가 니에던데 제일 시중에 가서 라빈던 디파라지 얘도 무엇이 먹고서 가시지 레비에 단다 자자냐는 라마지에 비고 공소했던 뉴니 속에 송도 디파라지야 파서 도가를 때서 연구했다 아니 때스 코모공을 지고였다 디디 단다 사가다웨디 다와디는 거야
근데 대체는 저 그것을 사와다 이게 나와놓은 매번 제시한데
단나가 름체
그게 디서라는 그것도 년에 로스키 아이메
뉴니 되긴데 이 말에
롱이어서 말해
사가다 단다 가수래 윤자 당보다 니번이다 비정아 여로
덴터 동 알레 데페만 덴터 동보테 알레 덴터 니바데 페마도 덴터 동보테 데레 쳬바 주지 존이레 덴터 니바데 파여나 페친 제사는 했다디
안 되네야 윤자 당보 니버지 다 세바 가제 기억이 나더리 다 간데 되네 세바 사가다베 다 다리 줍시니를 배다 말이 정원이 이상하고 다리 줍시 쪽숨니 바다가 뒤서 매를 서럽지 이러면지
알레 지나가비
지나가베 되네 배터라 재산 대차되게
아니 페체티네 페체티세데 페체라 말에 대체된 가서 단다 사간다는 린을 매버체 로아 그래서 사간다 제때 대체 쳐버리 제레 근데 가서 뒤제는 소소 많은 저 디범 비게트 제 백에 쳐버려라다 대체 가서 사간다는 대체 미세라서 말이라다 제린을 버버 뭐뭐도 아니 다리 장아 지를 게만 칸나 되네 요 말이 딩해는 이만이 막한도
no.
대체된 것이 지난 가봐는 간사 매바치
That's all.
네기 된다 지마텔은 갔다는 막한데 세대체 다른 익사지래도
No.
대타치셔다 아니 제라 그것은 저한테 있지
That's all. So now, so next week we have no class, Rinpoche has to go somewhere, as we mentioned earlier. And then so Rinpoche said that there's something going on in the May, and then also at me, sort of my personal, I'm just talking.
그래서 다리 나를 쳐서는 지도로 내보여라다
If you, Rinpoche encourage you to go to
그 사바데 지로와
at the church performance by the nuns, that's also, he said, I would encourage you all to go. That's what Rinpoche said.
대디 다리 되는 바 된다 뒤 된다 될라야니 지도는 현나송에는 가서 이제라 예선나 다다 되면요.
So then also Gyute also have as a Nyingni practice. They have a Nyingni practice in there, and then
대도 가서 저라 손 내보여 말라다.
so we will not have a class. We will not have a class.
대지 대대 뒤제는 바 있는 게 됐으면 뭐 줄라도와.
So then I also have this is from the translator, okay, but it's a translator's footnote, in other words. I have my own things going on, and I have somebody visiting from my monastery, so I'm going to be a little busy from the second week of the May, so I'll not be able to translate for Rinpoche. So Rinpoche said actually it is okay to not to have a class in this whole month of the May, so that it's important month, so you can do all of things that can be to accumulate merits, to reciting mantras, 6-syllable mantras, and doing meditations.
아마 장으로 제게 가르쳐와래 만에 인저 줄은 뭐주 페토나 네 신뢰지게 제서서 무슨 텐상면 소야다 맞아 배발이나 메시 진급이 쳐봐야지 말이야
님은 가르쳐 배움시
많은 주도와 많은 주줄은 뭐주 나도 그래
Oh,
많은 주줄은 좀
last. If
if
one is able to do 600,000 mantras of the 6 syllables, then there's no doubt that you will be able to remain under the protection of the Avalokiteshvara. There's no doubt about it at all. So if you can 600,000 which regard to each syllables of the mantra, you are doing 100,000 for each syllables of the mantra, which means that you are doing a 600,000 recitation mantras, a syllable mantra. That's a great benefits of becoming oneself as a follower, in other words, of the Avalokiteshvara.
대단 드리고는 이제 전부 매바체다. 딱 가지 때는 장가서 사간다 이래나. 근데 감각이 강 두두지 얘네 이제 전부 가네. 네 시레즈기 많은 사야 되지. 됐사고요. 그냥 뭐를 더 로질도 못 소사이. 뭐를 다 내가 단한테 총도 총야다. 사투는 제대로 나서 소소 지어시면도 소소 된다로 와대 석강이 된다 말이야.
So let's commit all of us during the Sakadawa. We'll recite mantra of 6 syllables and meditation on compassions along with reciting mantras. And if possible, one can do 100,000. One time I did during the Sakadawa 300,000 mantra recitation of 6-syllable mantra recitation. I did that, but I have intention of doing this time as well, but at least 100,000 mantra recitation of during the Sakadawa, along with the meditation on compassion. So I would like to encourage all of you to be able to do this.
당하서 되는 게 겨와대로 대손도 사비 겨와는 쇼지도 털라 되네. 근데 라지 사진 당치게 줄라. 아니 상추 생기 생비토네. 딩엔지 신내 tempo. 디토네. 싫어지네. 로마제네. 아니 다 다시 손레선에 실라 손레지 내려녀서는 내려 보면 또 손주 있고 방법도 제게 이제는 인디나시 베나마세다 집에 신절로도 소잖아요. 뭐하다 뭐하다
By means of accumulating merits by receiving the teachings today, as well as the merit that we have accumulated in the past, future, and present, all gathered and become may all those merits become a cause for attaining meditative concentrations along with shamatha, followed by bodhicitta, as well as wisdom realizing emptiness. And by means of perfecting all those practices in the near future, in the very near future, may I be able to achieve the state of unity with a complete state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. May all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10th direction please bless me to be able to do this.
도대체.
What's the-
Thank you, Nimano.